Hello, BookTube. Well, no matter how much of an upheaval things are here at Hyde Cottage, it's still Tuesday. And Tuesday is Tag Tuesday, when all of BookTube rejoices in tags. And I was tagged recently in something called the Friends tag. It was created by Emily at Novelle Novels, and I hadn't seen her channel before, and now that I have, I'm glad I subscribed. I'll leave a link. You should subscribe as well. And I was tagged by Roz at Scallydandling About the Books. And it is, the tag started out as a reflection of the happiness that Emily has at having encountered the friendly atmosphere of our little corner of BookTube. I agree with that completely. And the tag breaks down the word friends with a prompt for each letter in that word. And I definitely want to do it. I just gave it a tiny little tweak. I gave it a tiny little tweak that reflects the fact that somewhere in the shattered concrete in the ill-lit parking lot at the back of an abandoned laundry on M Street in South Boston, there's always a little patch of Donegal where the Hoolahans and the Sweeneys are in constant warfare with each other. So I gave the little tweak of the friends tag to make it the enemies tag. But the same principle applies. It's the word enemies, and we'll do a prompt for each letter. So the first prompt is E. E is for enemies. How many enemies do you currently have? And I want to narrow the field here and put in a few conditions. Like, for instance, you have to know who they are, and they have to know who you are. It has to be mutual. It can't be, oh, there's that guy on the TV that I hate. It has to be mutual, and it also can't be situational. It can't be, oh, you're my enemy in this particular moment because you want the gazebo in the public park and I want the gazebo in the public park at the same time. It has to be just a categorical thing, not a situational thing. And in answer to the question, I have 4 enemies right now. People who cannot do right in my books and in whose books I cannot do right. And again, I want to point out that in a lifetime of knowing people, of being a very gregarious, outgoing extrovert, I think 4 is pretty good as a number. It could be a lot higher than that. Prompt number 2 is N. N is for new release. Are there any November 2020 new releases that are on your TBR? In other words, November 2020 new releases that you haven't got to yet. And as some of you will know, if you watch this channel, I read new releases almost exclusively, and yet there are always new releases that I haven't got to yet. And that is definitely true for November. We're running out of days in November, but I'm reading a lot every day. And I listed a few here. There is Redefining Anxiety by John Deloney. Kind of a self-help book about what anxiety is, what its new forms are in the 21st century, how to deal with it, how to characterize it, how even to recognize it, and how to recognize where it goes under the surface in one part of your life and bubbles up somewhere else in a way that maybe doesn't make it look like anxiety. I respect this author's brain, so I'm going to give it a try. I myself am not prone to anxiety, but I'm still interested in reading about it because I know lots of people who are. Then another one is for the gays. You got to give the gays something. And the one that I have here that I want to read is the first book in a series called Chinatown Demons. The first book is called Bound, and the author is Reese Ford. I gather that it's Chinatown urban fantasy with some gay characters, but I don't know any much more than that. I still want to read it because it's the first book in a series and it comes out in November, so it's brand new. I just haven't got to it yet. And we'll do one more. The next one needs no introduction on BookTube. It is a huge thing, and I read a bit of it, but I haven't read the whole of it yet. I haven't sat down and given it the time that it deserves, and that is These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong, which has been much heralded, much talked about, much discussed, much loved, much hated in some quarters. I just haven't got to it yet, but I definitely mean to. It's YA fantasy. It has an explicitly floral cover design, and it might be really good. It might be as good as its fans say that it is, so I'm going to give it a try. Then next prompt is E, and E is for Enrage. And the prompt is, what does it take for a complete stranger, someone you've never met or seen before, to enrage you instantly? Now, I want to know if you don't ever get that way. It could be that you are so well balanced that you don't ever experience rage just from a standing start. That could be. I want to know that if that's true. But if that's not true, what does a stranger have to do? There might be many things, but name one thing that a stranger can do to enrage you immediately. And for me, it's a fairly easy thing. I imagine there's not many people that it doesn't apply to, but that would be gratuitous cruelty to an animal directly in front of me. That has always enraged me. I cannot restrain myself. In many, many circumstances, where someone is just being a jerk, I can step back inside mentally and say, don't get involved, it's not your business. But when someone is being cruel to an animal directly in front of me, I don't have that self-control. I speak or act immediately. It's brought me a lot of trouble in my day, but I really don't think it's a defect. I really don't think I would change that. And it's born out of rage, but I try hard to control that rage because you don't want to make a situation worse. But the rage is definitely the thing that gets me to open my mouth or walk in the direction of what's of the trouble. So I'd love to hear what yours is. Then we have the prompt M. M is for Malice. Name a memorably evil character. A character who was written to be evil by the author and has stuck with you as being evil. There are a lot of characters like that for me. I will, of course, concentrate on fiction here, but there are a lot of characters like that for me, and one of the ones that really does it is the title character in Pete Dexter's novel, Paris Trout. Pete Dexter is largely forgotten now. He's a great 20th century American author who I don't think most of his books get reprinted anymore. I don't think he writes anymore, but I'm pretty sure he's still alive. And has a fascinating biography as well. There's some fascinating stuff in that biography. Paris Trout is the story of a small town, horribly evil, just a black hole of evil named Paris Trout. And you're not far into the book before you start to encounter the long tendrils of his evil as they sink into everything, so that by the time you get a third of the way through the book and a character just offhandedly says there's a little of Paris Trout in all of us, you're horrified to think that might be true, not only of all the characters in the book but of you as well. So I'm gonna say Paris Trout by Pete Dexter. I'm also going to recommend it. Then I is for the internet. Is there a person on the internet who regularly infuriates you? And for me, there are a number of people. A great number of people who regularly infuriate me. Probably at the moment, just going off my morning's viewing, the people who annoy me the most are a category that I mentioned many times before on this channel, the young dude bro health grifters. The young weightlifters who take human growth hormones or SARMs or whatever, and in order to create a physiology that they absolutely would not have the self-control to maintain otherwise. They get to millions of subscribers by being handsome and by having an athletic body. And they take tons and tons of slow motion B-roll of themselves lifting weights and whatnot, or staring dreamily at a city skyline across water. And they play non-copyright rap music, and they talk about building their empire, and they get Gymshark sponsorships. And the thing that infuriates me about them is that they're totally frauds. It's not like they believe a bit of it. They don't believe anything of what they do. It's all just a grift to get money. And that, oh my. Oh wow, that sound is amplified up here, isn't it? That always drives me crazy. When I'm watching a video, just this morning I watched a video by one of these guys, 22 years old, 4 packs a day, bourbon at 4 and for the rest of the night. The only time they ever go to the gym is the one time a week when they film new footage. And they spend their time on their video talking about getting to know your inner self while statutory raping their fans. They talk in their videos dreamily about how you have self-control is the key to any kind of personal growth. There are multiple addicts. They're addicts of multiple different substances and can't go a single afternoon without their addiction. So it's all just a complete fraud, and not in the benign sense of other YouTubers that I watch where they preach a line and I can tell by watching them that they are just fooling themselves. That's not the case here. This is a case of people who know exactly what they're doing, and that drives me nuts. So I guess you could say that I hate watch them. Although almost all of them are extremely aesthetically pleasing, so there's that anyway. But I want to know what yours is. Who on the internet irritates or enrages you? And remember, smarty pants, don't say me. Okay. Then our last E in enemies is E is for eradication. Is there a book that annoys you so much that you would eradicate it from existence? And if so, why? And you might be thinking that for me it would be Jordan Peterson's book, 12 Rules for Life, because I've ragged on that book many times on this channel as creating a national anthem for dude bro self-absorption, for encouraging young men between the ages of 18 and 25 to be absolutely ironclad absorbed in how fascinating they themselves are. Don't ever reach out to anyone else, and don't consider anyone else to be anything other than a repository of value that you can extract from them. The exact opposite of what you should be teaching these young men who are already prone to that kind of opportunistic narcissism. You need to deprogram them from that, not make it stronger in them. But that's not actually the book that I would recommend. There's another book that's on all of their shelves, same target demographic, same young guys, that I think has done more harm. I'm not sure that I would eradicate it from existence, because that's not much different than censorship, but I would definitely eradicate its influence. And that is Timothy Ferriss, The 4-Hour Workweek. An absolute Bible of a huge chunk of young male demographic. I've read the book, and I read it critically. I took notes and thought about doing a long takedown of it, but then thought, what would be the point? And if anything, it may be more damaging than Jordan Peterson's book, because Jordan Peterson's book anathemizes selflessness. It doesn't ever explicitly do that. But the subterranean read of every one of its rules, the subterranean read of every one of its sentiments, is that selflessness, altruism, is for losers. It's for suckers. The Jordan Peterson's book does that. And the subterranean read of Timothy Ferriss's book is, if anything, even worse, because it anathemizes work. It anathemizes the work ethic, discipline. Work smarter, not harder, that sort of thing. Work smarter, not harder, it means, if you are a young dude bro who has absorbed that through Timothy Ferriss's book, what does, among other things, what does that say? What does that stigmatize? It stigmatizes working harder. And that is really bad. That is really, really bad. That will create, and I believe this book has created, an entire audience of young men who are looking for a magic solution to avoid putting in the time, to avoid putting in the work, for anything, at anything. And also, needless to say, the goal of Timothy Ferriss's book is not self-improvement, it's money. It's money. The goal of the 4-Hour Workweek is not for you to be living on so little money that you can afford to only work 4 hours a week. The goal of the 4-Hour Workweek is to have all of your money in your empire working for you so that you're grotesquely wealthy. And the least you have to do, the most you have to do, is put in some time for 4 hours. And I know so many young men, 18 to 24, who that's their goal, it's their absolute dream, is to work. The 4-Hour Workweek is their Bible. They know it by heart because that's their goal, is to get all the benefits of work without doing anything, without doing any of the work, without putting in the time and the discipline, and especially without working to get better at anything. That is not a slow, incremental project. In this mind frame. In this mind frame, if you're working smarter rather than harder, well, that'll be a quick, easy, frictionless path to knowing, to expertise. There is no such path, and yet there are hundreds of thousands of young men out there who believe it because of this book. So I'm not sure that I would eradicate it, but I would definitely eradicate its reach. I wish there were a counter book that I could put forward without needing to write it myself. But that is, boy, you know, locations can change, acoustics can change, but construction is evergreen. And then the last prompt is S, and S is for Seething. Is there a book that still enrages you years later, where you read it years ago, and it still infuriates you? And for me, there are so many. I don't know that I could narrow it down. You could go, I mean, if we're talking about this type of book, the 12 Rules for Life or the 4-Hour Workweek, if you were to go back all the way, if we just stick to that type of book, just self-help, self-improvement type books, and go back all the way to how to win friends and influence people, that sort of thing, those are still irritating to me, because they turn people into algorithms. They turn social interaction into a code you can crack. that you can not only use to feel better in social environments, but that you can inevitably use for your financial gain. And that has been true. Those books have been around for 60, 70 years, and that drives me crazy. That's not why we're here. That's not what dealing with other people is supposed to be about. Treat every person like they know something you don't, that you can then learn, so you can discard them. But anyway, so it's a category, really. It's a category that's been all throughout this tag. And that is it. That is the enemies tag. And all that's left for me to do is tag people. And of course, the first person I want to tag is my own enemy on BookTube, my arch nemesis, my eyebrow baby, Brian at Bookish. But also Shawn the Book Maniac. We have enough disagreements so that in a weird alternate universe in which we didn't like each other, we might be enemies. I also tagged the guys at Codex Cantina. I don't know if they are all caught up in their tags. And also Gunpowder, Fiction, and Plot. Can't wait to hear your answers if you feel like doing this. And Bibliofilth. I haven't tagged you in quite some time. And also, I like in my tags nowadays to tag a newbie, tag someone who's new to BookTube. And I found a wonderful channel, Alicia Guzman, who did the BookTube newbie tag. I don't know if she's wants to do any other tags, but if you do, I'd love to see you do the friends/enemies tag. And of course, Britta. According to Reddit, we are husband and wife, which would make us natural-born enemies. But anyway, that is the friends/enemies tag. And I'm going to wrap this up for now and see what's going on out there in the earth-shaking construction. But I will be back. Thank you, BookTube.